Happiness is wanting what you have. Happiness is wanting what you have. Happiness is wanting what you have. Penguins are basically feathered sausages for polar bears. Brian Callen. Brian Callen is a world-class comic and prolific actor. He travels the globe, performs stand-up for sold-out audiences, and regularly appears on shows like Kingdom and the Goldbergs, as well as in films such as Warrior, The Hangover, and The Hangover the Second. He hosts a top iTunes podcast called The Fighter and the Kid with former UFC fighter Brandon Schwab. The three things you can fake. The three things you can really fake. One is fighting, the second is sex, and the third is comedy. It doesn't matter who your publicist is or how famous you are. Man, if you don't bring the money, it gets quiet in that room fast. Asking personal questions for longevity in comedy. I think the way to write stand-up if you want longevity in the business, at least for me, is to start by asking yourself personal questions. I write from them. I ask myself what I'm afraid of, what I'm ashamed of, who I'm pretending to be, who I really am, where I am versus where I thought I'd be. If you watched yourself from afar, if you met yourself, what would you say to yourself? What would you tell you? Impactful books. Brian is one of the best read humans I know. He is voracious, and I often ask him for book recommendations. Illusionist David Blaine credits Brian with being the first person to get him to read extensively. They met when Blaine was in theater school. The Brian told me the difference between the people you admire and everyone else, the people who you read. Here are a few Brian's favorites. I remember reading Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. That's a good fodder for a young man. It says these blood stark characters, you could even call them Christ figures, and you think to yourself, I want to be that. Of course, I read Nietzsche's On the Genealogy of Morality, etc., where the truth and truism are really cut and dried in a lot of ways. It's the equivalent of, I guess, intellectual read meat. But then I got into Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth and the Hero with the Thousand Faces. Joseph Campbell was the first person to really open my eyes to compassionate side of life and of thought. Campbell was the guy who really kind of put it all together for me, and not in a way I could put my finger on. I made you just glad to be alive. How vast this world is, and how similar and how different we are. Most gifted or recommended books? You are going to think I'm plugging you, but I probably have recommended The Art of Running and The 4-Hour Body. I'm not kidding, more than any other books. What would you say in a college commencement speech? Well, I would say that if you are searching for status and if you are doing things because there's an audience for it, you are probably barking up the wrong tree. I would say listen to yourself. Follow your bliss, and Joseph Campbell, to bring it back around, said, there is a great security in its insecurity. We are wired and programmed to do what's safe and what's sensible. I don't think that's the way to go. I think you do things because they are just things you have to do, or because it's calling, or because you are idealistic enough to think that you can make a difference in the world. I think you should try to slay dragons. I don't care how big the opponent is. We read about and admire the people who did things that were basically considered to be impossible. That's what makes the world a better place to live.